that looks like, which
Yeah.
in the collegiate setting now, it's going to look like, assistant athletic director or maybe someday even athletic director position. And then again, it's, it's less than a mile from my house, literally. So there's a lot of factors. We bring the dogs to work almost every day. So, it's hard to put like, what's that worth to you? To me, that's worth a lot.
You have nailed whatever work-life balance is supposed to look like. And I always sort of I go back and forth with that idea, because I think if you've got the right profession, then the term work itself is evolved kind of. So to be able to walk down the block to work, be in the weight room with your dogs, with your people, at a place that you like, doing things that you love, and then walk back home in the sunset with Pikes Peak behind you. It's just like, you got a good thing, man.
Yeah. And I mean, the way that it started too, because it was literally a blank slate, I got to rope in all the helpers right away.
Yep.
We kind of had to hit the ground running. So it wasn't like we were going through interviewing and job searching. It was like, I called up one of my former interns that worked with Air Force football, and I knew he was free in the mornings. I said, "Hey, I need your help." And he was like, "Yep, I'm there." One of my interns from the summer, Caitlin, I put in charge of swim and dive team. And so she's been great. And then Emily Anderson, who was working at NSCA part-time with us, had done internships at DU, played varsity sport at Louisville. So she was a D1 athlete. So she was awesome. So I roped her in as well. And so I immediately
Emily
was able to assemble this team and just get after it, hit the ground running. So it was pretty cool.
So that you said that was the internship was July, correct?
Yeah, when I had those.
So and students arrive on campus mid-August?
Yeah, well, CC, I mean, they have kids around. They call it Block A and B. So they have a June summer school and a July summer school.
Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, you really did have to sort of hit the ground running. So that's kind of interesting. So what are the first three things that you had to do? And this is kind of this is an idea I'm curious about. So you take over a new position. Do you have sort of a template? Like, these are the three big boxes I have to check before we can get up and get moving?
I mean, it's interesting. Like you'd think in an ideal world, you'd be like, oh, it's August, I'm taking over, we got to test everybody and do all this. Well, at that point, it was literally a one-man show because I didn't have help. Yeah. It was like, well, I need programs for 17 teams.
Yeah.
So, it was literally, and that was, again, having people I can trust, like Emily and John and Caitlin. I was like, hey, do you want to help? Cool. Here's your 2 teams, or here's your 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Go. I'm happy to help, but this is your show. This is your chance to shine. Go for it. But at the beginning, I probably wrote the programs at least for the first month or 2 for literally all 17 teams. Which was, I mean, you think about it though, and I think when you're young and new, that is a daunting task. And at the end of the day, it's not that hard, right? I mean, for some of us that have been around, it's nothing earth shattering. And again,
there's a funny secret to strength and conditioning, and that is the human body can only move in a certain number of ways.
Yeah. And they're not, and again, these kids are not weightlifters. They're not advanced weightlifters. They're to play a sport, so they probably need pretty basic strength programs.
Sure.
That would keep it pretty simple. So, yeah.
And was there, so 17 different teams, was there pretty good investment across all 17, or I'm sure certain had higher investment than others?
Pretty strong culture. Again, it's been built, like I said, the culture there was really well established. So we have great relationships with sport coaches. That was another nice thing too that I didn't really mention, but I knew almost all of the sport coaches already before I even, when I came over interim. They already all knew me from the previous NSCA partnership. and me just being around sometimes. So like I knew the men's lacrosse coach, I knew the volleyball coaches, I knew basketball coaches. So it was really easy to
Right.
walk into that setting, and it wasn't intimidating. I really felt like it was like I belonged there, honestly.
Um, well, that's good. I think that does say a lot, especially about probably Kevin, who's not just like a former colleague of yours, but a friend. Um, and you hit two key words just in that explanation. One was culture, and the other I think was trust, especially within the staff. And I think those two things probably align really well. To trust your people enough to just let them pick up and go. That's kind of a base level thing, and then that too, I probably enhances the culture. You found that to be true?
Definitely, yeah. And I think just having more, some other people around, they liked the fact that I brought in a diversity of different people and different coaching styles, and
Mm-hmm.
female coaches, and all across the board. And it just worked really well. Like we have a good team. And again, we're hoping that we'll be able to add to that. I know that, pushing for one more full-time position is a part of what we've talked a lot about. And obviously this pandemic has kind of put a damper on a lot of budgets, I know.
Sure.
But I know from talking to my boss, it's still a very high priority. So I feel pretty good about that. And then hopefully, again, hopefully we can get back to normal this fall, and assuming that everybody's on campus and we're back to school at least. I think things will turn around pretty quickly from that.
I think it's so interesting. I hope things are what I really believe is that normal in the way that like last fall looked is probably not a possibility. That's my instinct. But some semblance of normal will be key. And I wonder and hope that more and more athletic directors, probably like yours, will see the value of those additional positions. Because think about we started this conversation talking about scaling. Here's another truth of what sort of a strategic reintegration could look like. You'll probably need to be way more spread out, which will mean you'll need more remote coaching going on. Maybe you are like, even in this situation, maybe you have a bunch of med balls on the field and you've got a group of 30 spread all the way, you know what I mean? And meanwhile, someone else is back over here with the second half of the team. I don't know, but I do hope that people are thinking of that. In fact, we might be, because we're in a similar boat. We're like, my day job is at a school with 4,000 people. We mentioned before we got on that just like a ton of kids around. And you may have seen pictures on Instagram and stuff like that, but when we have a packed house, you're on top of each other. So we're going to have to get really creative. That's going to include building up a solid staff, maybe wearing masks at the beginning in a reintegration. It's going to be interesting. But another thing I'm so excited about to hear from you is the understanding that your AD has when it comes to like the value of this. It's so funny. Funny isn't the right word, but I don't know how in 2020 someone could miss that. Right. Like the 9-month opportunity between sports seasons to build the body, to enhance performance, but also enhance psychology and increase the culture of the school. Like to see you're such a good flag waver for like there's like tiger stuff all over the place. It matters though. It matters that a kid would be a tiger year round. So to see the value of that is I think an encouraging thing.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about championship culture now, which gets, that's standard language now at CC, and we're building another factor in my job. We building a $52 million hockey arena, which is actually literally right down the street from my house, closer than our other facility on campus. So first time in, I don't know how many years, decades, that CC hockey will actually have a arena on campus to play in. brand new. They literally just started going vertical yesterday. They put the first bricks in that are going up.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So we're going to have, I think it's going to hold about 3,500 people. So it'll be sold out every single game.
Wow.
We're building another weight room in there. So again, I'm going to be now, into another facility. So again, the need to increase our staff, not just from supervising our athletes, but, to truly allow my position to act more like a director position, manage, mainly the day-to-day of the two D1 teams and then oversee everything else. You have to have more people to be able to do that. So yeah, it's huge that they understand that.
Do you know where your office will be?
I have an office that's right in the weight room. Yeah. So it's pretty
Will there
sweet.
be one in the hockey facility too, or no?
Yeah. Yep. So that'll be kind of probably where I base my operation. My main hub will be out of that office.
Yeah.
So then my other staff can be based out of the current office in our El Pomar's weight room. So
it's amazing.
Yeah. And that's going to be sweet. It's just, it's the arena, for lack of a better analogy, it's going to have every bell and whistle. I mean, sports med and strength conditioning and equipment and all of that is all, they've looked at arenas all around the country, and it's going to be designed, for the perfect flow and for our guys to have resources there to eat and do schoolwork. And now the current arena that we have is 15 minutes away from campus, so they always have to drive back and forth, and they could end up being down at the arena for 6 hours a day once in the middle of hockey season, and then have to come back to campus. So it's just going to be such a game changer for us, especially from a recruiting and guys wanting to stick around in the summer because we've got ice and we've got a weight room right there. It's going to be amazing.
So who do you recruit against? What you guys are playing? Have you been to what's CC hockey historically? Is it pretty competitive? I know it might have been a little bit of a down year.
2 national championships back in the 50s. Been to the Frozen Four in the mid 90s. So they've always been good. It's one of the first collegiate hockey teams in the history of hockey. There's a tremendous amount of history in the program. Couple Hopi Baker Awards, a lot of NHL players. Jaden Schwartz is probably the most recognizable recently that people would know with the St. Louis Blues. And I had was fortunate enough to get to work with him when he was here in 2011 and 12. Super great human being. And most of our guys, the goal is to play professional hockey. So most of them are going to try not to have a real job for at least a few years. And that's our goal, to help them achieve that. But we play, for people that don't know hockey, we basically play in the SEC of college hockey. It's called the NCHC, National Collegiate Hockey Conference. North Dakota, Minnesota, Duluth, Denver, Western Michigan. It is the pipe hitters of college hockey. So yeah. And in any given, you have a conference tournament, and the person that wins that would obviously go. But pretty much any given year, there's 4, if not 5 teams from our conference that will go to the tournament.
Really? And who was it done by the time this thing hit?
We had just started the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah.
Wow. And maybe this is too high level logistics. Is there any intention of that replaying in some way? Is there
No, I'm pretty sure.
It's
no,
just
it's
over. So do you crown? Would they unofficially crown a champion, like the person who ended in first place? I'm curious about that.
I think from seeing some other stuff just with other conferences, I think they would actually go by who. I mean, they wouldn't necessarily. You wouldn't call it the 2019 champion or 2020 champion, but you'd still be, if you were the 2019 champion, you're just still the champion because there was nothing in 2020.
Gotcha. Huh. It's so weird, man. It's just like we put pause on sports. It's wild. And do you know, okay, Has there been more talk, maybe even at your place, about like the eligibility of those people who didn't get to finish the season?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know the NCAA has said that they'll, they're granting
They'll
that.
honor it.
So I think, but that just, I mean, that's great. I think, but again, if you played a long season sport like hockey or basketball or a spring sport, I mean, it just, I guess it depends on where your sporting career is going to take you, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you know that you're pretty much that was your last hurrah and you want to get on with your life and start your career or get a master's degree, then you're like, well, now should I stay a whole nother year just to play that season?
Right.
I don't know. But if it means making dollars afterwards, then obviously it's probably a no-brainer that you come back for that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I'm thinking of like the spring sports, especially. There's a weird halt to the winter season.
Right.
Like the guys that you talked about, all the hockey players, obviously March Madness. We've got a rugby player at Arizona. It's the same. I think they were at about the same point in the season as hockey, and it's just like he was a captain of the team. And it's just like done, go home. Not even a moment to like say goodbye to your teammates.
Right.
So very strange in that way. Um, but I almost feel weirder about like the spring athletes. Like we've got a baseball player out at St. Louis University, and it's like they're like just about to kick it off. So you go through an entire year. You're just about like your mouth is watering. You're at the doorstep, and then it's gone.
Right.
You don't get like a half season or almost a full season. It's just gone. So now you almost have a 2-year off season.
Yeah, yeah.
And to that point, like if you're a senior, that's strange. That's psychologically you're gearing up, like you say, for your final hurrah. You're trying to finish strong, and then and you go right back into an off season.
Yeah, our men's lacrosse team was 6-0,
Yeah.
undefeated. They had very, very high hopes of finishing really, really strong this year, and who knows, maybe could have been undefeated the whole season, and
Wow.
yeah, so.
Were there a lot of seniors on that team?
There's a good amount. I think there was 6 or 8. So yeah, it's tough to see those guys because those guys were the ones that were around from day one when I started training
Yeah.
with. And like,
Well, and
yeah,
now I'm thinking like, okay, now recruiting is taking a whole new form too, because not only are you recruiting your next crop of athletes, but you're recruiting some of those seniors to hang back. I would assume.
right. Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. Trying to figure out. Well, yeah. Can we help? Can they get another degree? Could they get a master's degree? What's the incentive to stick around? Right.
Yeah. Huh. This wasn't necessarily the point of our call, but now I'm thinking about how I can sort of leverage that in some way. Because I hear about at the smaller school level, especially, we've had guys. I know there's been a lot of people who've come back for their if it's a fall sport. Like you just sort of slow down. You like don't graduate. You're like a credit or two away, or whatever it is, and you take like 4 years and a term, and you'll play your fall sport if you've been given a red shirt. This is at the non-scholarship level. But to do that and then but your sport's not till the spring is such an interesting. That's a whole different proposition, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
I know I think we teed it up a little bit, but go back to a little bit of what you mentioned about kind of what'll be moving forward, how we'll deal things. I know the NCAA is coming out, I think, with some information today in a webinar with their intercollegiate sports medicine committee, maybe NATA, and and I've been helping Eric at NSCA, the guy who took my job, with some of NSCA's guidelines for returning to work and training after this COVID-19. So that, I believe, the NSCA's guidelines are supposed to be out this week, I think, as well. So I think, again, as we're kind of relaxing some of the other guidelines, Colorado just went to what they're calling safer at home, and people are slowly allowing businesses to open and get back to the workforce. I don't think that'll happen perhaps until summer for us, as far as like being able to be there every day. But again, NATA, NSCA, NCAA are putting out these guidelines probably this week from what it sounds like. So that'll give gyms and fitness, even private fitness centers and varsity weight rooms some guidelines and about how to actually implement your training program when you're back.
I think it's so helpful.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
It is huge. It just takes one logistical component off the plate for the thousands of people who are trying to do it. I don't know if you saw, my phone just died, so sorry.
Oh, no worries.
We're gonna put this on YouTube, so I'll still share far and wide. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Can I make a quick tangent, which will put this into context also?
Yeah. Sure.
I talk a lot about sleep and essentially the discipline of wellness to enhance all other areas of your life. You like eat, move, sleep, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like in the last year or so, I have, since we're paused and I can edit this, I don't know if I can edit this or not now that I say it. I'm going to try to plug this back in as we talk, Scott.
Okay.
Is that cool? But the discipline of wellness, how that sort of like maps onto the rest of one's life. I'm going to show you this painting I just made too. What do you think of that? I just sold it.
Oh, nice. It's cool.
Here. But the discipline of wellness and how that like affects all other areas of life. One thing that I've recognized is there's also this like interesting mindset of, I would call it like forgiveness when you don't get it right.
Yeah.
Like for example, do you ever not eat that well?
Ever not what?
Not eat very well? Do you ever eat like desserts or anything like that?
For sure.
Yeah. It happens, right?
Yeah.
And then like, and I was like, and you can make logic, you can make peace with the fact that you do, and then maybe you train a little harder the next day, or I don't know. You sort of rationalize it.
Training after this.
Are you? You hear me?
Yep. Good.
Yeah. And then so today, to bring this whole thing into context, I woke up at 4:30 today, and I was just like kind of up. I had a lot going on in my head, and I just woke up. And I was like, there's something kind of interesting going on here, because I was okay, and I think there's something, and like I'll be okay. But I recognize though that like it's because I've been trying to prioritize sleep for like the last few years now in my own life, and I've gotten good enough at it, I think, and I've gotten healthy sleep often enough. Because I had that, what I would call like the discipline of wellness, I think I've also become more resilient when it doesn't go well, if that makes sense. So like I said, I've been up, I went for a walk at like 5 a.m. First of all, it's beautiful and quiet. Nice. And like, it's awesome. But because there's a greater amount of resilience, it also became clear to me that like, just like psychologically, it doesn't stress me out as much anymore either.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like 2-3 years ago, if I had woken up at 4:30, I'd have been so stressed out that like I was going to get to midday and not be able to function as well, and that would be like a concern of mine. And it just doesn't happen anymore. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? You ever feel like that?
Yeah, I don't wake up that early very often, thankfully.
Really? I thought you were kind of. What about the dogs?
Yeah, we're not a super early crowd though. They've gotten lazy. It's actually kind of nice. They pretty much will stay on our schedule. I mean, which is still, I don't know if it's earlier than most people, but the 6 to 7 is our sweet spot. So.
Well, I think that is early for most people. I would say it's probably normal for adult life, but it's early-ish.
Yeah.
Even like, okay, so 6 o'clock is a great wake up time.
Yeah.
But 6 o'clock, if you're going to be like healthy over the course of a lifetime, probably means that you need to start throttling down. Well, I mean, 10 would be an
Right.
8-hour sleep opportunity.
Yeah.
And then, and that, I keep using this term because like, it's clear to me more and more that the discipline, waking up is hard only when you don't have the discipline to go to bed on time. That's what I've found in my life.
Yeah.
Is that
Oh,
true for you?
yeah, it's great. 100%.
Yeah, because like waking up is not hard if you're well rested.
Right.
Right. And I try to, if I can, think of like the hardest it is to wake up. That's much harder than putting Netflix away. You know what I mean? Than just being sort of self-disciplined in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, tell me about the rest of your life. What else is going on with you? I see that you bought one of those Sornex racks.
Yeah, got the off the grid rack. I really was just gonna like, I think originally when we first got like sheltered at home, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna have a couple sets of kettlebells, we'll make do. And that just didn't, I kind of hit the wall with that and was like, had a minor panic attack of, losing all my gains and just withering away to nothing or whatever. And I was like, I got to do something. Melina was like, well, she's like, why don't you turn the shed into a gym? She's like, you could put all the bikes in the basement and clean it out, and you could like make it into your own little like gym. And I was like, done. That was all. And I was off to the races with it. And then those guys came out with that. Like it was probably honestly the week that I was like renovating my shed. And again, luckily I live a mile from work, so I can run over and throw a bunch of power blocks and barbell and weights into my car and run them back here, and they're safe and sound for the 6 weeks or whatever it's going to be. And now I've got a great place to get in some workouts now. So that off the grid rack was so huge for those guys to come out with that and then donate all the money to the, to a nonprofit.
It's just smart. They're good business people, obviously.
Yeah, it was cool.
And what did you have to do to set that up? So for people who don't know, they should check out Sornex or check out your story. You're posting a lot with it in the backgroround. You have to fix it to the wall.
Yeah, it's super simple. I mean, you could put it in your basement, you could put it in your garage. One of the they originally designed it. It's called the off the grid rack. They actually designed it, I think, to be as more of like an outdoor type thing. So they've got one of their pictures that's bolted to a couple trees that the outside, which is super cool. And so I just attached, I used 3 2x10s that you could use 2x6s, 2x10. So I attached the 2x10s in my shed to the studs, and then you just attach the rack to the 2x10s with some bolts. So I am the worst mechanically inclined person. If I was left to make a living by manual labor, I would be poor and probably out of work. But it was really easy for me to put up and put together. So I'm thankful for that as well.
Yeah. That's good. It's got to be user friendly, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's just so smart. So you've been staying pretty fit. The one thing, okay, so how have you distributed workouts to your athletes during this time? Or are they sort of on their own, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so right when I took over in September officially, we switched actually to Volt Athletics, which is I call it a web-based platform for lack of a better term. And I've known them and been friends with their CEO really since they started, and just seen them grow and evolve. And so I've had a long relationship and friendship with those guys. So it was an opportunity to really try and adapt that for all our teams. So we were actually using that for all our programs, for all our teams since September. Nice. So kids would that's how they'd have their program.
Yeah, how they literally had their phone in the weight room?
Yeah. So we have some magnets that attach to the racks that actually hold the phone, and you can just pop it on there, or they just leave it on the bench, and then you pull up your workout and go through there. And so it's pretty sweet. It's got, kind of a daily check-in, and then they've got kind of like smart sets. I'm not sure the exact term, but basically they they'll give them an RPE after a set, and then it'll adjust their next set based on if they said it was easy or hard. And it's not always perfect, but for the most part, it's pretty legit.
It's interesting though.
Sometimes they do more than they thought they could, which is nice. Sometimes we adjust it the other way. It just depends how they're feeling. But it's been great. They've loved it. Kids have loved it. They loved it when they were away. So if we had a vacation or block break, they were like, "Oh, so cool to have that on my phone now."
Yeah.
So
definitely.
we lucked out to have that in place when this hit, because it didn't change anything for us of how we deliver programming. We were ready to roll.
And what kind of stuff are you programming? And this is maybe, if anyone watches this during the quarantine, this might be interesting for them. Like if you don't have access to the off the wall or the wall based rack or home gym or whatever, what kind of stuff do you program?
Yeah, I mean, it's all body weight program. They were great enough to really respond quick, and they adapted a quick body weight program that we could easily upload and distribute for everyone. But then we can go in and adjust things, so you can change exercises for people in every individual program as well. And then another cool feature that they came out with, though, probably about a month into the quarantine, was that they made an edit. So you could actually, if I put them on a program, they can now go into the app and they can say if they only have dumbbells and medicine balls at their house or access, they can adjust in the settings that they only have access to those implements, and then it changes the program to just use that.
Whoa.
Really cool. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
That was probably the most impressive of all the things I've seen.
What a cool function. Yeah. Okay, so I've had to write out programs. I'm doing 3 programs right now. Yeah. Thankfully I'm not having to peak anyone for anything, but there's 3 core programs, and it's based on the amount of equipment you have, because it's body weight, some stuff, but that would be a lot easier to just flip the switch. That's smart.
Yeah, I'll connect you with Dan, man. You guys should talk.
Some good people over there.
Yeah, great people.
Yeah.
They're very tied in with NSCA principles and training the right way, and so it's very sound science-based programming. It's cool because you can go in and you can create your annual plan from as soon as you create the program, and then it basically creates your annual plan for the whole year. So you put in competition dates and and ends of season dates, and then it builds it out, and then you can go in and edit it from there. So
that's we got to talk more off air about that. I think it's really interesting. I'm really happy with how adaptable our current platform is, but I'm always just interested in how people are doing things everywhere. So that's an evolving field, and it's because of this moment in time. I think that industry is just gonna pop off, whether it's Volt, Train Heroic, Team Builder, any of those platforms. Athletic U is a local one by us.
Yeah, there's so many great ones out there. All those ones you mentioned are just fantastic. It's like I said, it's hard to say how you would pick one, and I think I've used almost all of them in some way, shape, or form. At some time, it was just it was the relationship and the long-standing connection I've had, and then seeing how it fit with what we were doing just made the most sense for us.
Yeah, totally. And have you been able to engage from afar at all, or how do you manage that part of it?
We
the human part.
Yeah, I've set up a few Zoom calls with teams to connect. I know our sport coaches are doing a fair amount of that too, so I also don't want to over engage these kids. A lot of them follow me on social media, so that's been a pretty easy way to just stay connected. And I know that they're, at least if nothing else, they're watching my story and they know that I'm training. And again, that was another thing when I was like, man, I got this gym squared away so that I can kick ass this break, because I've been beating this drum of telling them, hey, you've got the greatest opportunity of your life right now to have no distractions, to eat right, to sleep right, do schoolwork, enjoy your family, and train your butt off. And I was like, man, if I don't do those things, then I come back and we all get back there in June or August or whatever it is. And there, I'm like, I
you
can't
pick up the barbell.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I think that anybody that knows me knows that probably, one of my core values is walking the talk. So they're going to better believe it, that I better be leading that charge.
No, it's inspiring. There's definitely this sort of find a way mentality, which brings so much of the work that we try to do, I think, into the forefront, at least of my mind, and I hope other people are benefiting from it. But like, we come back to these core, we talk about anchor principles and the mantra, does your behavior match your goal, etc., and just really confronting the logic of one's own behavior, not judging it, but being honest about it. And if it's almost like, it's funny, this moment in time is almost like an arms race. It's like whatever teams and people can handle the quarantine better are going to be a significant advantage once it all straightens out, which it inevitably someday down the line will. So it's that I guess it goes back. I just texted one of my teams today, or did a remind to the group. It's like, you don't want to, what's the old saying, like, don't get ready, be ready, or don't get ready, stay ready, or something like that. You don't want to all of a sudden, you don't want to all of a sudden, they lift this thing, we get into competition, you're like, oh shoot. No, you want to be on it. And I think on it, it probably looks different during this period of time, but
Totally.
and what's that?
No, I said totally. That's why we're really hoping that we get at least some of this summer back to have some supervised workouts, because otherwise, if all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're back in September and it's just going to be, now we're starting, we know that a lot of people haven't had access to, people in Seattle or California, they've been fairly well locked down and potentially for a longer period of time. And may not have been able to get out and run on a field or a track or whatever. So it would be really nice to have this summer.
It really would. Even like, I'm trying to, what do you think the minimum dose is? Like, even if like 2 or 3 weeks, even just something.
Anything would be better.
Just I
mean, obviously ideal world, right? We'd want 8 to 12 weeks or 8 to 10, but like at the end of the day, like, we've got to have something to just not throw them into, or again, we're going to have to really preach to sport coaches about these NSCA and NCAA guidelines about return to play, because you're going to have to adhere to work to rest ratios, and it might be new to you if you're a sport coach. Like,
I'm telling you, this is fully candid. My fear, especially going into football season, I've coached football for years. My fear going into the football season would be that, and I'm not calling anybody out, I'm just being totally open and honest. My fear would be that some people who might not understand how the body works would just throw running at people intensely, I would say absently, without a true understanding of what they're doing, without the work rest ratios in play, and just try to make up for lost ground early on through just like, I'm going to throw this out there, abusive running, trying to get ready for the season. It's a legitimate concern. I hope that from an ethical perspective, I hope we just move stuff back, if nothing else. The season doesn't have to start in August, maybe it's, I wonder if there'll be some shortened seasons that start, early mid-September, and give people a month with their teams without having the expectation of playing a game.
Yeah, and why couldn't you play 8 games instead of 10, or 6 instead of 10, and just call it's an abbreviated season because of the nature of the world we live in, and it is what it is this year, and obviously we'll go back to normal next year when we have a vaccine and it's easy to test everybody.
So weird, man. What is like, okay, before I was going to ask you a personal question. Before I do, uh, a few quick, like absolute go-tos for people training at home. What would you say?
I would say do some kind of conditioning if you can. You know, obviously it doesn't have to be long distance running, but actually one of our basketball kids asked me the other day. She's like, "Well, what do you think about if I was trying to run a mile or 2 miles as fast as I can?" And I was like, "I think that's a great idea. Like, it's not necessarily on our program, but if that's something that you know you can do and you're going to do it and you're actually going to try and run it faster every time, like go for it because
Yeah.
you're going to have a bigger base than everybody else when we get back, right?
Hmm.
So maybe 2 miles isn't an applicable basketball uh, running, but I'm going to say if you can run 2 miles pretty darn fast, you're going to be in pretty good shape when we do other stuff.
Yeah.
I would try and do some sort of conditioning. Obviously, you have to, if you can't do anything, if you don't have any equipment, but doing big bang, movements, squats, lunges, push-ups, like I said, it's our buddies at Power Athlete have a great program they put out there called Power Monkey, was it?
Third monkey.
Third Monkey, yeah. Too
Have you
much
heard the
power.
story of that?
I don't know if I have, but
It's
the gist of that was that it's like $50 worth of equipment
Yep.
from Home Depot, or you might even have. I have like 3 cinder blocks sitting right here behind me. I was
Nice.
like, oh, I could do that.
Dude, it's so smart. And that's
Sorry,
what
where did the story come from?
okay, so third monkey, and I might get it wrong, but you'll get the gist. The story is or it's like in a mindset you adopt. It's like when everyone's getting onto the arc. This is where it came from. Like things are pairing off and getting onto the arc. If you are the third monkey, like you battle everything. You can't be number 3. You've got to be in the top 2, or you're not making it. You're not moving on. So
that's even better.
It's just in this like end of days. There's a good story behind it that's more eloquent than what I just shared. But it's this. It's like a mindset. It's like an intensity. Like we're in this near apocalyptic time or so it might seem. So you got to battle. You got to get creative. You can't just hang back. You're the third monkey. There's no space to hang back. So, but I don't know. It's interesting, and even that reminds me of like, and this will go into I guess the personal question, but like, I feel like it is the perfect time to identify what you want, what's important to you, and then ask yourself, like oneself, not just you, does my behavior match my goal? I think that has to come along with this understanding that things are not perfect, of course, and that our definitions need to evolve and expand, and that's something that's become really important to me and to us during this time, is that like we don't even allow the word perfect in conversations anymore. Like in the first week or two, we get on Zoom meetings and there was this constant disclaimer like, well, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be blank. And we're like, yes, of course it's not going to be perfect. We're in a global pandemic. It's not like, let's forgive ourselves more quickly of that. Like we're not expecting it to be perfect. The question is not, is it going to be perfect or ideal? The question is like, are we going to do something that's going to make us better? That includes, like I say, kind of this, I would say, healthy approach to constant movement, which is such a big and important idea as it is. Like you want to be improving, you want your performance to improve, you want your relationships to improve, your professional life, all these things. You want to be moving up, but you don't want to create anxiety around that sort of stuff in your life either. So this feels like a cool moment in time to sort of like just almost like bathe in that understanding. We're moving forward, but we're not going to do this obsessive. There's got to be a healthy way to constantly advance.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool if out of all of this came people being outside more, walking more, exercising more, training more, having created habits now. I've seen more people running in my neighborhood than I've ever seen in my life,
Yeah.
And more people out walking. So, if nothing else, maybe hopefully this is going to create those habits that people continue with. And, obviously it may not be sustainable for everybody, but hopefully they see the correlation between being healthier and not getting sick potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I
or
hope
not
you're right.
dying or not dying from it.
That is interesting, because that's pretty directly connected at this point, isn't
It
it?
seems there's something new every day coming out about, you know, healthier and stronger people aren't dying, you know, and maybe that's not a blanket statement, but like for the most part, it seems like fit people have a better
Right.
chance.
And no one better come after you about that. It's, but I think, but like you said, like at large, far more often than not,
Yeah.
when people are passing away, and it is tragic, I'm not making light of that in any way, but there's some sort of pre-existing condition, and that pre-existing condition might be, lack of physical fitness. And I'm not talking about getting jacked up like you. I'm talking about, literally just cardiorespiratory health
Sure.
from an active, healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's interesting. It's worth considering. Well, okay. So my question is, how is life in your household? Like, what's the mood like? What are you guys up to? How's it been?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, Lena works from home all the time, so
Right.
she's got this world dialed in. It's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, nothing else. We've cooked more meals together. I mean, we always kind of did that anyway, but we've definitely even continued to do that more and planned out more meals. And we're getting out and being, cognizant of social distancing, but getting out on our bikes and getting outside, riding our mountain bikes and taking the dogs to do stuff. And so they've definitely, again, I think they're going to be excited to be able to go back to, especially when the kids are back, because the dogs absolutely love the athletes at CC. So it's going to be very exciting for them to get back and see their athletes again. But I think it's been great. We have gotten into some good routines, and yeah, we set our alarm to get up in the morning and stay on our routine and try and be in bed around 9-ish so that we can get that 10 to 6 8 hours. Yeah, we've done a few puzzles which are test our my patience and my mental longevity, but
yeah. That's well, so what are some of those habits? Because that's a really important idea. So you mentioned trying to stay like a consistent bed and wake time. That's one of the key ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge for everybody, and I've even told our athletes that when they first got into this thing. It was like, look, once, don't get in a habit of getting up at 10 every day, treat it like any other situation. Especially they have classes which are probably different now, and I know, talked to one kid the other day, and class they have doesn't start till 1 for whatever reason now. So I mean, you just have to make sure that you have some sort of schedule, because right, you went from being here on campus with us and you had to get up and either train with us at 6:30 or 7 and then go to breakfast and then go to class and then have a break, and then maybe you have practice or a lift in the afternoon, schoolwork. So like you went from having a pretty regimented dining hall hours, pretty regimented schedule, to a pretty free flowing, potentially depending on your home life, open schedule, right? So I think that was really important to establish like the normal habits right off the bat so that you stay that. And even for myself, like I was saying, with my workouts, I had to kind of shift, and I was like, you know what, I do, and I stole this from James Clear, Atomic Habits, but calls it habit stacking, which I'm sure is no new term for you. Basically, you're stacking the habit that you're trying to keep consistent on top of an already consistent habit. So for me, it was, you know what, I'm going to train at lunchtime every day, because for right now, otherwise, for whatever reason, I wasn't getting a consistent workout, and I was doing it at different times or then not doing it at all. I'm like, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to walk the dogs and that'll be good. So, right. So I was like, all right, have to do this. What do I do every day? Well, I eat lunch every day. So I'm going to lift at lunchtime every single day. And so that's been my quarantine habit stacking that's panned out exceptionally well. So now sometimes I'll even just lift and then eat lunch after. So, but either way, like the habit is formed that 11:30 or noon or whatever time lunch is, that's when training happens.
Right.
And now it's ingrained in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I think I think that's really smart. That's I think habit stacking is such a good strategy. You probably named two of the biggest things, and three if you add training to it, that I think we've been trying to recommend to people during this time. The consistent bed and wake time is huge. Changes everything. Changes the whole day, for a variety of reasons. And you know, it's not 8 hours of sleep. It's 8 hours of sleep during the time when like the circadian rhythms of literally this planet suggest. Like if you go to bed before midnight, your odds of that 8 hours of sleep being healthier, more effective, more efficient, literally from a neurological perspective, is like they skyrocket, comparatively speaking. You know, you go to sleep at 4 a.m. and sleep into the afternoon versus 10 to 6 or 10 to 7. You're just talking about a different ballgame, and the consistency surrounding routines that come with that. And then I love that idea. Just evaluate, take a quick stock about the things that you're kind of already doing or willing to do, and cycle around that. I eat lunch every day. Start there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, you know, I like too, I mean, you kind of alluded already too, but like I love this time of year because being able to like wake and sleep with your like circadian rhythm. And so like I'll leave the shade, you know, right by my bedroom window by where my head is open now, because now when the sun is coming up, which is around 6ish or a little after, like that's when you're waking up. And I love that time of year to be a little more, because now winter's a different story because it's just dark. Right. But like at this time of year and throughout, you know, these next 4 or 5 months, that's the best too for me, from like a kind of just not needing an alarm. You know, those are the days you're waking up before the alarm and you got a good night's sleep and you're like, oh yeah, this is perfect.
Doesn't it change everything?
Yeah.
It changes, dude. And it's funny when sometimes when we do like our workshops and we get into something like sleep, we've talked about this, but it's always the thing that people dismiss for whatever reason. Like I think it's because of all the things that we talk about, it feels the most like doing nothing. You know, so for like high achieving people, they're like, it sounds soft. Yeah, it sounds like I'm doing nothing. I want to be doing, I want to be doing something. Fine. Understandable sentiment. But then all you have to do is go to 2 places real quick. The first is maybe it's that. It's like just how good you feel when you wake up refreshed after like a healthy night's sleep. Just how good that feels. How, like, what a nice moment that is. And then obviously perhaps the other one is and then reflect on a time where you didn't get enough sleep and what garbage you felt like. You know, and if you could, you know, if those are the 2 things that you're sort of weighing, it's just so unbelievably clear why you'd want to lean into one or the other. But and then we add this new layer, which is, it's not new really, but that sort of wellness, that sort of health and wellness takes discipline. Yeah. And for a lot of people, it's funny. It's so much at the root of a lot of the discussions that we're having these days. It's like wellness, you know, there's this push towards wellness, push towards self-care. Well, if that gets out of control, then that's kind of a slippery slope too. Like you don't need a bubble bath every day. You do need to take care of yourself first. I'm all about that, but like within reason, folks. You know what I mean? Like we don't need scented candles and bubble baths, and there's no offense intended with that. We just don't necessarily need it. What we do need is a routine that makes us feel good, that makes us feel like we're sort of optimizing our own performance, and then develop some rigor around that. And that doesn't have to be bad. A little bit of discipline can be amazing for self-care, you know? So
yeah, because you're not always going to have motivation, right? So if you have discipline, and you know, I'm not a big Jocko guy either, but discipline equals freedom, right? Is his big mantra. And I know from what I've seen of what he says, like if you're disciplined and you have good habits, it doesn't matter if you're motivated, because you're
Right.
not going to be motivated every day. It's not, just doesn't happen like that.
100%. I totally agree. And you're right. Jocko's, his messaging is kind of, that's a ship you need to kind of steer, because like, I agree with you, and you don't want to go to the far end of that. Like, you don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. every day or whatever it is. You just don't need to. But if it works for you, great. But discipline equals freedom is kind of an interesting concept, because of the things that you just said. Like, and we actually talked about this with your class a little bit yesterday. I talked about me slogging through a 5K, and I was kind of kidding. I can handle it. But at the times when it gets hard, you like to be able to fall into rhythm and not have to overthink and try. It's just the act of just going is really important, because you might be jacked up at the beginning of a 5K. You might get a burst halfway through and another one when you see the finish line. But so much of it is just going. So to have a set of, to use that as a metaphor for life, to have those sorts of structures in place feels really important. So
good.
And I'll tell you before we get off, I stole one from you, stole a structure from you, and that was buying a bunch of meat at a farmer's market. I didn't get a half cow, so I feel, but I got a bunch of it, and it's come in real handy during this time. So.
Yeah, no, that's been a game. I mean, we've always bought a cow from one of the CSPD, Colorado Springs police officers I used to train at NSCA, raises 3 cows every year to butcher. And so we bought a cow from him every year. But then just with this quarantine stuff, I stumbled upon another farm out here in Colorado through another strength coach friend. And they deliver to the Springs on once a week. And so we bought 20 pounds of pork and some duck eggs from them, and they delivered it dropped it on the porch in a refrigerated bag. And I was like, how cool is this? Like, especially for stuff like that, like pork, beef, I can't watch those documentaries about it, and just knowing that it's coming from a place that at least I know it's small batch, whatever you want to call it. I know the person that raised them means a lot to me.
No, that's awesome. That's cool to hear.
And it's not cost prohibitive. Honestly, at the end of the day, I think the 20 pounds of pork we bought came out to about $7 or $7.50 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
Which is more than reasonable. And when we end up buying the half cow, which is a lot, it's like $5 a pound for basically grass-fed, very high quality meat.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not cost prohibitive. You have to look. I think that's probably what I would imagine. That's what holds a lot of people back. Like, you got to find the people that do it right and for a price that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and when you buy if you buy a half a cow, you're like, you're putting in up front whatever it is in the, whatever it's 15 or 17 or $2,000 for the 300 and however many pounds you're getting. So like at first you're like, oh shit, I'm writing this check for $2,000 or $1,700, right. But like, we're literally still going through the cow from last year, and I have to go pick up this year's cow this week.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta start entertaining more, man. We gotta.
I know. No, we need to get these. We can have groups of 10 or less, so I think we're good right now.
Okay. Yeah. You can have a barbecue.
Yeah.
That's probably my next step. That's one of my first things post quarantine is going to be a safe distance barbecue at a distance. What's the
there's another guest.
What's the first thing you're gonna do? Final question. The first thing you'll do post quarantine?
First thing post quarantine, probably, I know that the ski areas are closed, but I know there's a ton of snow still out there, so I'm gonna take my touring skis and go to one of the mountains I know that allows uphill access even when they're closed, and get a few more turns in.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like a lot of things, I hope we all have like a renewed appreciation for stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a very realistic possibility. I hope it happens. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out today, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I'll publish everything up to there. Anything else off air that you want to talk about?
Nothing too exciting, no.